On the day of my father-in-law's funeral, my brother-in-law was on trial for aggravated assault. Liang Yin sobbed uncontrollably in the mourning room, while my daughter, Rue, was causing a scene by the altar, even knocking over the offerings. My mother-in-law held my son tightly, her tears seemingly all cried out, her gaze vacant as she stared blankly at the ceiling. The scene felt so real, yet unbearably cruel. I stood among the crowd offering their condolences, overwhelmed by guilt and shame. Unable to bear it any longer, I rushed into the mourning hall, collapsing to the floor, banging my head against the ground as I wailed. What was the point of harboring hatred now that he was gone? Suddenly, it all seemed absurd. As the person responsible for all of this, shouldn't I be the one in that urn? This wasn't the plan. I only wanted to get back at my wife. I never anticipated things would spiral this far out of control. My father-in-law had always treated me better than even his own son, and yet I had indirectly caused his death. I was nothing short of a madman, a sinner. I glanced at my wife, and it was clear that my sudden appearance had startled her. But seeing me like this seemed to calm her. She knew I had forgiven everything. The funeral director came over, placed the mourning band on my arm, and helped me into mourning clothes, signaling for me to kneel beside my wife. I crawled over, knees dragging across the floor, and knelt down beside her. Almost without thinking, I reached for her hand. She resisted at first, but then let me hold it. As people began paying their respects, I saw a couple standing further back. The man was my wife's boss. His presence made me feel sick. When it was nearly his turn, I stepped aside to smoke, watching him carefully from the corner of my eye. "Family, please give thanks," someone called out. My wife's boss placed a comforting arm around her shoulders, saying, "Liang Yin, stay strong. You'll get through this." I let out a cold laugh and muttered, "Bastard." But then he did something that sent a shiver down my spine. He reached out and affectionately pinched Rue's cheek. His touch brought an unusual look of serenity to my wife's face, a deep affection I had never seen before. In that moment, everything clicked. This was the first time I had seen the three of them together, and the realization hit me like a freight train. It shattered the last bit of strength I had. I couldn't accept this reality. Rue, so adorable with her big, bright eyes and chubby cheeks, was supposed to be my little angel. So why wasn't she mine? Liang Yin, how could you do this to me? Seeking comfort outside the marriage was one thing, but why would you have someone else's child and make me the fool? My mind spiraled. Any thought of forgiveness vanished. I crushed my cigarette into the ground and, without hesitation, pulled out my phone, sending all the evidence I had. I was beyond reason, consumed by madness. It wasn't long before people started checking their phones. At first, one person, then another, until nearly everyone had seen it. There was a wave of whispers, exchanged glances, and finally, fingers pointing at Liang Yin. Realizing something was wrong, she urged her boss to leave. But I wasn't about to let them get away. I rushed over and shoved my phone in the face of her boss's wife. It was ridiculous, but I needed her to know the truth. As soon as he saw the video, his face went pale. He quickly pulled away from Liang Yin, abandoning his comforting gestures, and fled the scene, leaving his wife sobbing and swearing as she chased after him. The funeral hall descended into an eerie silence. The mourning had ceased. All eyes were now on Liang Yin, filled with anger, pity, disappointment, and disgust. It was like they were tearing her apart with their stares. Liang Yin seemed possessed, standing up only to collapse again, over and over, as if trapped in a nightmare. She screamed in rage, her voice piercing through the air and stabbing into my eardrums. "Chen Peng, you lunatic. All you wanted was to get back at me, right? You just wanted me to be humiliated, to suffer a public death, didn't you? Well, congratulations, you did it. You happy now? Chen Peng, you'll die a miserable death." Chaos erupted around us, spiraling out of control. The once solemn atmosphere was now a mess. Watching the havoc unfold, I felt a twisted sense of relief, as if all my pent-up anger and humiliation had been unleashed. I couldn't help but laugh through the tears.